So we,
No, not yet. We'll see. We got a couple more weeks to find someone. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's difficult. You know, with all the night and I have something else going on. I do. But it's okay. We'll figure something out, I'm sure. And they can be that person who's like a backup. Because, you know, we can't be there every time. So, he travels a lot. And I've got work, and then most times I can get off work, but then sometimes I can't. Anyway, but yeah, it'll be a good, it'll force us this month to find some people. What do you do? Where's the Masters? Yeah, where? St. Thomas, cool.
okay, so somebody at midnight,
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Do you go to the St. Paul campus or the one downtown? Okay. Okay. You live around here? Okay.
is it matching books?
Alright. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, used to because buttermilk. Yeah. The old butter, we still live around there. 35th and Grand, roughly. Yeah. But, yeah, whatever that's called. Yeah, yeah. The laundry place used to be? Or, right, because you could go to butter. Yeah, get some coffee. That is kind of a bummer. We're sad about butter too, and we wouldn't really go there that often, but they had a CSA cadet down in the basement. So, you know, it was like right across the street from us. But, oh well.
Maybe that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The new place feels, I've only been here a couple times, but like antiseptic. there. It doesn't feel the same. So you know for Mother's Day? Nice. I always used to want to fun. Cool. Well, it's nice. It's a nice day for it. Yeah.
Ready?
My mom is in town. Yeah, my parents are in town. So they go over there and have dinner. Yeah.
Who's the trouble in your heart, standing in your way? Who made you cry? Who said goodbye? Who's the one with that t-shirt on you? Religion is a lie. Take your message, put it on all of yours. If you're too close, you can be there. Don't get too close, please don't be there.
we'll try it again.
I need you people.
People of Solomon's Porch, today we meet.
In this place, but not only in this place.
We tell the story of the light of God.
Light that shines on all people.
We tell the story of promises made to those who were too old and too young.
Too broken and too far outside.
We tell the story of deliverance.
Not from this life, but for this life.
We tell of the love of God.
A love from which nothing can separate us.
Not life nor death.
Nor anyone, or anything in all creation.
We meet with the Spirit of God.
The salt of the earth and light of the world.
We share these stories with one another,
Seeking to be a benefit and blessing to all the world.
Amen.
Are you broken down? Have you found your way around here? Run your daring dreams aground here. You're settled down. Jesus newly formed your beauty. Surround, breathe in story, sing out glory, we're gracefully allowed, and what we hold to now is that we hope out loud. It takes a crowd to figure how near the Lord God moves around here, round and round. Jesus newly formed your beauty, heavenly surround. Breathe in the story, sing out glory, we're gracefully allowed, and what we hold to now is that we hope out loud. It takes a crowd to figure out what we hold to now is that we hope out loud. It takes a crowd to figure out. Jesus newly formed your beauty, heavenly surround.
Now at 5 o'clock in the evening, 7 o'clock in the evening, and as you know, 10 o'clock in the morning. It's a little experiment for us, so it's our second week of this, and so nice to have you. It was put to me a moment ago, man, it feels so different being here in the morning. So if you've never been here before, it doesn't feel any different to you being here in the morning, but to some of us it's like walking around in your dad's suit or something. It's one of those days that in our calendars is a big deal. You might know it's Mother's Day today. It's a little hard to miss. You might also know that Mother's Day has a rich history in the United States. Had really two starts to it. The one that we now call Mother's Day was initiated in the early 1900s, 1907, 1912, and then officially 1914 became a holiday in the United States. But before that, Mother's Day was an effort of moms to try to stop war. It was in 1872 that moms banded together and said, we don't want to see our boys die anymore in these wars. And so the movement of Mother's Day first was mothers saying, we want peace in our country and we don't want our boys to be the instruments of battle and war. That didn't really catch on like people wanted it to. And then in the early 1900s, now 99 years ago, in 1914, Mother's Day became a day for people to honor their mothers. But that was also not just a day to say hi to moms and to remember your mom. It was a day to raise the profile of the work that women do in our world. It also had this little edge to it. It was trying to say, we don't yet have full women's rights in this country. We don't yet allow women to vote the way we would. We don't yet have all of the societal benefits going to women. But let's not forget that women and mothers especially play this really significant role. So Mother's Day has had this interesting push to it. In 1924, the woman who initiated Mother's Day back in 1907 turned her back on it and said, it's just become commercialized nonsense by now. So that's really a rich history to Mother's Day. But nonetheless, it's a good day to say to moms, Happy Mother's Day. But it's also a tough day for a lot of people. It's a tough day because of people's relationships with their moms. It's a tough day for people who want to be moms and aren't. It's a tough day for moms who live with broken hearts. It can be one of those days where it seems like everybody else is telling a different story, and people can feel really confused about their own emotions, their own responses. I had a friend who wrote a piece of poetry, who posted a piece of poetry written by a mutual friend of theirs this week, and I thought it would be worth noting here this morning for Mother's Day. It's a poem called For All Who Aren't. It reads like this. A prayer of love for those who aren't mothers. Today may you know all you are. A prayer of love for those who decided they wouldn't be a mother because they dared not for fear that they would replicate a world that they felt tried to destroy them. A prayer of love for those who did, but not by choice, who had decision thrust upon them and now live searching for a love that will catch up to their truth. A prayer of love for those who couldn't, who tried, but it never worked, and for those who did, but lost. A prayer of love for those who never got the chance to even try, and who, with all the other pain that lives inside, today bear the fear of someone else's pity. A prayer of love today for those who fear the word mother, with resentment, disappointment, guilt, fear, rage, horror, sadness, ambivalence, grief. A prayer for those who cannot love their mother or their child, who no longer have the strength to try. A prayer of love for those who have no day that speaks their worth, that tells their story, that reminds them that they are also a gift to the world. A prayer of love for those who aren't. Today, may you know all you are. I thought that was a really nice recognition that we live in a complex world, and we're all trying to figure out how to be a benefit and blessing in it and through it to one another. We have another custom around here of not just meeting and reflecting and singing, but of eating and drinking. It's an ancient custom. We do it in our own way around here, sort of house party style, or I guess on this day, Mother's buffet style. So Mother's Day buffet style. So set around on 4 different places, there my good friends right across the street at Sun Street just made this morning. And there's juice set around and wine over here and gluten-free options on that little table back in that area over there. Gluten-free crackers and you're welcome to have those. But we eat and we drink in this custom. Now the sermon reading today is going to tell this same story. We're at the part where in the gospel it tells of Jesus' commentary around the Passover meal. So we'll talk a bit more about that then. But we'll invite you to stand up. We have a little reading that we do up on the screen. We read it all together. It's sort of our big picture of what we're doing with communion. For 14 years, we've met in the evening, and so we've never had to deal with the bright sunlight washing on the screen. But strain those eyes the best you can to try to read the screen. And then after that, middle about share with one another. We invite all to participate in communion at every level. You can take, you can give, you can clean up, you can do everything you want in communion. It's our problem. So we'll read this out loud in unison in that sometimes awkward way that group readings go. We take communion by serving and eating bread and wine together in community with followers of Jesus around the world and throughout all ages. We enter this mystery proclaiming and having the faith of Jesus as the Messiah, whose life, death, burial, resurrection, and ascension, and show the love of God for the world, free us from sin, and initiate the kingdom of God in our world in new ways, for the benefit and blessing of all the world. So eat and drink. After you eat and drink and clear your hands, then we circle up and hold hands with people if you're up for this. Well, there's not enough of us for a full circle, so that's weird, isn't it weird? May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace and faith, so that you overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
It does, it can. We all fall down, but then again, I never thought I'd see you like this. An empty glass, a golden ring, and all that's left me listening to all the things I should have said. The walls, they echo low. Everything is bought and sold. Everything is over now. All the silver and the gold, I gave it away to complete my mission. Everything is bought and sold. Thought that this should end somehow. All my youngest turned to old. Now I'm looking for death to end my wishing. I was just a boy when I fell down. You refused to pick me up. I was just a boy when I nearly drowned. You refused to pick me up. I was just a boy. I was just a boy. Now everything is bought and sold. Everything is over now. All the silver and the gold, I gave it away to complete my mission. Everything is bought and sold. Thought that this should end somehow. All my youngest turned to old. Now I'm looking for death. Now I find another chance to count the minutes I've loved and those I've wasted, but kids won't find. Over grandma's Christmas dishes now. Cause everything is bought and sold. Everything is over now. All the silver and the gold, I gave it away to complete my mission. Everything is bought and sold.
say, you know, you could have spent, that was really expensive stuff. You could have served the poor by selling that perfume instead of dumping it on Jesus. So it got me thinking about the way we put value on things, whether it's work or possessions, and the way we serve each other or anoint each other, and it reminded me of this poem. So it's by Mary Oliver. I'm reading it out of her new and selected, and it's called Singapore. In Singapore, in the airport, a darkness was ripped from my eyes. In the woman's restroom, one compartment stood open. A woman knelt there, washing something in the white bowl. Disgust argued in my stomach, and I felt in my pocket for my ticket. A poem should always have birds in it. Kingfishers say, with their bold eyes and gaudy wings. Rivers are pleasant, and of course trees. A waterfall, or if that's not possible, a fountain, rising and falling. A person wants to stand in a happy place in a poem. When the woman turned, I could not answer her face. Her beauty and her embarrassment struggled together, and neither could win. She smiled, and I smiled. What kind of nonsense is this? Everybody needs a job. Yes, a person wants to stand in a happy place in a poem, but first we must watch her as she stares down at her labor, which is dull enough. She is washing the tops of airport ashtrays as big as hubcaps with a blue rag. Her small hands turn the metal, scrubbing and rinsing. She does not work slowly nor quickly, but like a river. Her dark hair is like the wing of a bird. I don't doubt for a moment that she loves her life, and I want her to rise up from the crust and the slop and fly down to the river. This probably won't happen, but maybe it will. If the world were only pain and logic, who would want it? Of course it isn't. Neither do I mean anything miraculous, but only the light that can shine out of a life. I mean the way she unfolded and refolded the blue cloth, the way her smile was only for my sake. I mean the way this poem is filled with trees and birds.
The old man walked a memory. He walked them all. And haunted by an old
5 o'clock and at 10 o'clock in the morning. During the sermon time, there's also an offering down in the yoga space downstairs that's guided meditation, reflective prayer time, where for the period of time that the sermon happens, there's a chance to not be in the chatty vibe that ends up being in here, but down there. But today, all the people who lead that aren't here, so you don't actually get that today. It's forced upon you. Chattiness is your only option. And the chatty part today is going to include our reading of the 14th chapter of the book of Mark. We tend to read through whole books of the Bible here for our sermons, as you very well may know. And we're in this part that's really close to the end. It might not feel like it from the storyline itself, but we're really close to the end. There's only 16 chapters in Mark, and the 16th chapter, 3 weeks from now, is really short. In fact, it's like a paragraph long, and then there's a second little ending, but we'll get to that in a couple of weeks. We're still right in the thick of the story, and we've suggested that one of the ways to think about the book of Mark is maybe the way that you would think about someone who puts together a television show or a movie, and that there's storyline and that there are these characters in this storyline as it's unfolding. And if you were to look at this week's reading as one of the episodes, there's some curious things about this episode. On Tuesday at the sermon discussion group where we work on the sermon collectively, which I'll invite you about, we were noticing some pieces to this reading. The particular lack of the use of some names and the almost intentional use of other names. Now, we've been reading through Mark, so some of us have gotten a feel for this already, how the storyline of Mark has been put together. Maybe you'll pick it up for yourself, but we thought it was interesting on Tuesday that there's times where like the name is really specific of who it is. Like in the house of Simon the leper, and this guy named Judas, and Peter and James and John. Then there's times where it's like this nameless woman, or this guy. And other Gospels, you might know that Mark is the shortest, perhaps one of the earliest written. Matthew and Luke choose to give names to some of these people. But in Mark's telling, they don't have a name. And we wondered about that. Is there something about that we're supposed to be paying attention to? Okay, so you'll pick that up as you go. This part we're going to read tonight, or this morning, is really packed with famous parts to the Bible. And I found it interesting that so many of these very famous and significant storylines are jammed right together. Like they all happen right there. I've heard Christianity explained a lot, and I explain it, publicly and professionally for a living here. Most of the time, people who do explaining Christianity to other people, whether it's interpersonal or something, will take lots of the sections we're going to read today and break it apart into really distinct pieces. And I think it's interesting how they all lay together. All right, so here we go. Mark chapter 14 reads like this. Brian, can you play with that? I don't know if I'm just having a stroke or if there's a... Everybody see the big purple thing in that?
Yes.
Okay, it's not just me?
No.
It's not up there, okay. That's a sign that projector's about to go. All right, so anyway.
Yep.
And nobody else sees that, so what you're saying, like, no, it's just you. All right, so here we go.
It was 2 days before Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The chief priests and legal experts, through cunning tricks, were searching for a way to arrest Jesus and kill him. But they agreed that it shouldn't happen during the festival, otherwise there would be an uproar among the people.
Jesus was at Bethany visiting the house of Simon who had a skin disease. During dinner, a woman came in with a vase made of alabaster containing very expensive perfume of pure nard. She broke open the vase and poured the perfume on his head. Some grew angry. They said to each other, "Why waste the perfume? This perfume could have been sold for almost a year's pay and the money given to the poor." And they scolded her.
This is like the third or fourth vignette, or a little pericope, as some people like to call it, in our reading over the last 3 weeks, where the people with Jesus see someone behaving in a way that they don't like. and they say to that person, you should stop it, you should get out of here, don't bug it. There was the story with the children, there was the story with the blind man, now there's the story with this woman. And it seems that there's something in the way Mark wants the gospel to be told where we remember that sometimes some of the closest people to Jesus have the hardest time seeing how these outsiders fit in. It's not put explicitly that way all the time, but it sure seems like it's sort of part of it. So in this storyline, right, you have this big beginning. Jesus is now fully positioned against the legal experts and the chief priests with their cunning tricks, right? And they now want him. So the narrative now has turned, and death narrative gets introduced. Death narrative inside of the gospel is a really significant thing. It's unavoidable. And then you're at the house of Simon the leper, who gets a name, and a woman who doesn't get a name. Simon who had a skin disease, and during dinner, a woman came with a vase in alabaster containing very expensive perfume. And she's nameless. He gets a name. Feel free to chime in anytime you want. No, we'll just keep rolling. So they scold her, and then the story picks up.
Is it the authoritative man thing going on?
Yeah, I wonder. Here's the funny thing on that, though. Some Gospels assign this activity to Mary Magdalene. Right? You might know that, maybe you've read that before. Like, oh, I thought it was that woman, Mary Magdalene, who maybe, used to be a prostitute or something. Or that, the Da Vinci Code says maybe it was the wife, right? Like that one, right? In 2 chapters, in chapter 16, she is specifically named as one of the people who goes to the tomb to see if Jesus is there, to anoint his body with perfume after the resurrection. So, chapter 16, she's named. If, as the Gospel of Matthew and Luke say it, this is Mary Magdalene. In this story, she's not named, and if it is that person, she is named in another story. So it doesn't feel like it's just a cultural thing, like, hey, don't name the women, because they're about to start naming women. In fact, only naming women, this is one of the interesting things about chapter 16, only women get named in Mark at the resurrection. And only men get named before the crucifixion. Something maybe is going on there. But, so they scold her, and now the story goes up.
Jesus is doing taboo after taboo. He should not even be in that house of a leper, should he?
Oh, like Jesus is in the house of a leper where he shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be there in the first place.
Yeah. There's laws, Jewish ceremonial religious laws, that would say that if you're going to enter the temple, if you're going to be in any kind of religious activity, there's purification you have to go through if you've ever run into people of certain classifications in Jewish law. And a leper is clearly one of those. And for a religious leader, many of those religious leaders of the day, they avoided contact with people with certain diseases. The skin disease very well. He was talking about leprosy in some of the other versions. Yeah. Okay, so he's in the house, so we'll read the next part of the story.
Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Why do you make trouble for her? She's done a good thing for me. You always have the poor with you. Whenever you want, you can do something good for them. But you won't always have me. She has done what she could. She has anointed my body ahead of time for burial. I tell you the truth, that wherever in the world the good news is announced, what she's done will also be told in memory of her."
Isn't that interesting? Now, I don't know that if people go to religious schools and are taught things about the stuff you have to say to someone, right? Like there's a thing in Christianity as well as other religions of hey, what are the really important stuff that you have to tell people? And what's the stuff that it's okay if you don't bring that up, right? You don't want to read the whole Bible out loud when someone says, so you're a Christian person, how do you think about God? You don't start with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and read the whole story, right? That would seem a little much. So you kind of pick and choose. And we all arrange what stuff we think is super important and what stuff we don't think is important. And for some people, it's bad. Jesus says this thing, I tell you the truth, wherever the whole world the gospel's announced, what she's going to be told is done in memory of her. But I've never heard anyone be like, honestly, this is the thing you really have to bring up. Isn't that something? Like, somewhere in the narration of the Gospel of Mark, this was supposed to ring with like, you couldn't possibly tell the story of the good news of God without this. I've never once told this story other than like in reference to we're going to read something that's about this. Really something. It has drifted from our tradition. It reminds me of the experience of my Anabaptist friends. Anabaptists are a big group of people that were baptized not just by the state, rebaptized. Anna means twice baptized, like twice baked potatoes. So the Anabaptists were these people that said, like, the baptism that happened to me as a child isn't the thing that's just important. I want to be baptized in my own life. And some of that tradition, those Anabaptists, include like the Mennonites and other tribes of Mennonite-like stuff. And in some of those traditions, foot washing is just as important as communion. So in some traditions, like church involves communion, Catholic tradition, Episcopal tradition, Orthodox tradition, some Presbyterian tradition. But these folks also think foot washing, like you can't tell the story of the Passover meal without Jesus, telling the part where Jesus takes off, wraps a cloth around him, bends down, and washes the disciples' feet. So they make foot washing like a real constancy. Other traditions never do it or bring it up or ever even talk about it. So it's one of those parts where you start to see in the development of Christianity, it has certain pieces that are presented as they must always be there, even though it's not true for all of our traditions. It's part of the, seems like it's part of the dynamism. But I don't know, anybody else with comments on this story so far?
Well, she's anointing my body ahead of time for burial. I mean, I always go to the poor thing. You'll always have the poor with you, because that kind of always irks me, and I think it irks a lot of people that Jesus said something like that. But
Because it feels like Jesus is like, you can't solve poverty,
Yeah.
just forget about
forget about it.
it. You're always going to have those people
Because
around.
people misuse that. But today it was this, she was anointing my body ahead of time for burial, and it reminded me of how people, like the disciples, are never understand what Jesus is talking about in Mark. Like he actually said, I think, like, I'm gonna die, and they're like,
Yeah.
Shut up, like that's I don't get it. But
Yeah.
like she on some level like gets what he's about. And I'm not sure how, but
She's
gets-
positioned as knowing what's going on.
Right.
The disciples are positioned as, you should stop doing that thing you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But she gets it. So I mean, it's the thing with the children again, where this person or group of people who are positioned as like, they don't get it, they're not part of it. Jesus says, no, they get it, and if you want to get it, you have to be more like
them.
Yeah.
And this and right after that story from a few weeks ago was the blind man.
Blind man, yeah.
Bartimaeus, and it was the same thing, like you need to become more like him. And now he's like, well, you know what? Her story is the one that's going to get told all the time, not yours. Yeah, there's something where those people who were shunned, for Mark's telling the gospel, the ones who were shunned were the ones who knew. The ones who were closest seemed to be the ones who interfered. So the story's going to really pick that up even more. And it might be a good thing for people of Jesus following faith to always ask that question, like, is there something about my life or commitment or tradition or experience that causes me to be more open to the outsider or less? Not because you want to be nice to the outsider. I'll just preach for a second. Seems like this is suggesting, not because you want to be nice to the outsider, but because the outsider gets something that you don't get. Like they're indispensable. They're not just needy. Right? It's such a different way to think about it. All right, so we'll keep going because there's a couple more parts that are really fun too. So right out of this thing, like, hey, that money could have been spent for the poor. Why are you doing all of that kind of stuff? And Jesus says, leave her alone. What she's doing, she's anointing my body for burial. You people don't even think I'm going to die. She's way down the road on this. Her story is always going to be told. And then back to a name. So anybody can read if you want. Not just Corey, but you're welcome to read it too.
Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to give Jesus up to them. When they heard it, they were delighted and promised to give him money. So he started looking for an opportunity to turn him in.
Inside the same pericope, the same scene, the same story, are two things about money. Why waste that perfume? It could have been sold and the money given to the poor. When they heard about it, they were delighted and promised to give him money. Maybe they're connected. And it goes on like this.
On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb was sacrificed, the disciples said to Jesus, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover meal?" He sent two of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the city. A man carrying a water jar will meet you. Follow him. Wherever he enters, say to the owner of the house, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room where I can eat the Passover meal with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs already furnished. Prepare for us there." The disciples left, came into the city, found everything just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover meal.
I mean, what a strange little part of the story, right? Like Jesus has these other guys in another place. He's going to send two people. And he's got a thing set up upstairs. It's such an interesting little rhythm. And it goes on like this.
That evening, Jesus arrived with the 12. During the meal, Jesus said, "I assure you that one of you will betray me. Someone eating with me." Deeply sad, they asked him one by one, "It's not me, is it?" Jesus answered, "It's one of the 12, one who is dipping bread with me into this bowl. The human one goes to his death, just as it is written about him. But how terrible it is for that person who betrays the human one. It would have been better for him to have been It would have been better for him if he had never been born."
The betrayal scene in the gospel.
The human one, is that the Son of Man?
Son of Man. Yeah. This translation that we're reading uses the human one. Son of Man phrase is a phrase Jesus used about himself. Lots of translations use that. It means the Son of Man instead of the Son of God. So the Son of Man means the human one, the one from the human lineage. It's this phrase from the book of Daniel that Jesus uses. In our own religious language, it kind of has a different ring to it, and the human one seems to jump out that way. But if you're reading this in other translations, it would read, the one who betrays the Son of Man. It's the same. It's just that word. It has that ominous edge to it, doesn't it? Like, one of you is going to betray me, and they're all like, "Not me." He's like, "No, it's one of you." Some of us like to point out, he doesn't say who it is. The rest of the narrative lands one on Judas, and then each on the rest of them. They're all going to flee here in a minute. We're going to have to pause in the middle of the story, but next week we'll pick that up, and they're all going to have versions of betrayal. Like everyone does.
And some religious traditions will remind you that every day you betray Jesus, you pound that nail in with everything you do.
You're a constant betrayer.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I gotta, I don't mean to go back, but I want to. I keep thinking about that poor thing. And he says, he doesn't say you will always have the poor. He says you always have the poor. It's interesting to me because it strikes me very much as something that happens a lot today. When somebody has a lot of money and they do something with it, everybody points fingers and goes, "Gosh, that could have fed countries."
Yeah.
And they criticize the person for whatever they did with the money that they didn't agree with, even if it was something good but wasn't maybe what they thought they should do with it or whatever. I feel like this is sort of somewhat similar to this kind of a thing. It's like people just looked for a moment to sort of project their own guilt for not helping in the ways that they should, and they go, "Look what you did with all this extravagant stuff you had. If I had that, I would have definitely given it to the poor or done something." I was like, no. You've had plenty of opportunity to give to the poor, and you don't. She just did something good for me, leave it alone. So I think that's more feels to me like more that's what he's saying. He's like, plenty of opportunities for all you to, the poor has been around you haven't done a thing. Now somebody does something with some, you know, extra stuff that they have, and immediately you go to, you don't have the poor. You know, that's been sort of rattling around in my brain.
Yeah, Jesus doesn't really bite on that either, does he? He doesn't get into a whole economics kind of thing. This just says, oh, you know, in a way, the poor you're always going to have. I mean, I heard it, maybe you've heard it too. When I was in college, they brought this up like, hey, Jesus isn't saying we shouldn't solve poverty. Like somehow that line goes to people thinking, don't worry about the poor, there's nothing you can do about it.
That's how I read it as a younger man, and I don't hear it that way at all now. Yeah.
Because when you pull just that line out, when you say like, well, Jesus said you're always going to have the poor, it sounds really different than in the midst of this conversation, Jesus says you're always going to have them, but right now, and this is a timing issue, this isn't a commitment issue.
Right.
There are many important things to do. It's not a commentary on economic social structure from the first century through the 21st century, and is poverty something that can be solved through a redistributive system? Right. Not that at all. I mean, it's just doesn't, or maybe it is exactly that. I don't know. There's people who would argue that. All right, so we got to hustle. All right, so a couple more things. So he goes to the city. They go to the city. He's got a place. He's in the place. They're having the meal, and Jesus ruins a perfectly good Passover meal by saying you're all going to betray me. All right. So here we go. It's just about that.
While they were eating, Jesus took the bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them, and said, "Take, this is my body." He took a cup, gave thanks, and gave it to them, and they drank, and they all drank from it. He said to them, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. I assure you that I won't drink wine again until that day when I drink it in a new way in God's kingdom." After singing songs of praise, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
Tuesday night, obviously lots of discussion went on because it happens if you get a group where you're just open to talk, where we're all trying to say, like, I wonder what Jesus was getting at with that. I'm not going to drink it again until I drink it new in God's kingdom. I wonder what that's all about. Today in the reading, I was struck by the combination of one of you is going to betray me, and then he took the cup and gave it to them all, and they all drank from it. He invites the betrayers to be the ones who drink of the cup. And then there's lots to say about who drink it again in a new way. And after singing a song of praise, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And then the story picks up from there. It's going to pick up with Jesus says, you're all going to falter, you're all going to fall, you're going to all scatter off, and they all say, no, we're not. So we'll pick that part up next week. That's the introduction of communion, by the way, in the book of Mark, or the Lord's Supper, or the Eucharist. I mean, that's the language that's very common to people. Took the cup, gave thanks, and when they had all drank from it, he said, this is my body of the new covenant poured out for you, and this is my body which is broken for you. And that's where that language comes from, why people talk like that. Anybody else? Thoughts on this? You know, our question in this community is not only, I wonder what that was about, but I wonder how we're implicated by that. It seems to be a persistence question. I mean, you're inside of that very full narrative, like religious tradition and betrayal and acts of faithfulness and outsiders and insiders. It's really something, isn't it? Like, in one way, how foreign all that is. It's like, what was that all about and what's that? And then at the same time, how familiar all that is. Like, still in a time of people trying to do what God wants and live a life that's meaningful, and condemnation and betrayal never seems to go away. So in some ways we're in good company, and in some ways it's like, boy, it's a wonder this thing ever really caught on. All right, we'll sing a couple of announcements, and then
Fell in love with an elegant feeling, so to speak, could take me from places too hard. Had to stretch from the floor to the ceiling, fingers sifting through it to take me to God. Barely made it out there without kneeling. To a lot of things that tempt me but take me apart. Pretty good, but could do with some healing. For another, I'll tell you my place in the stars. Born into this unchosen ground, raising my fist, holding out stones on my chest, birds in my mouth, send you my love, let them out, cold in my bath, warm in my tub, standing in front. Born into this unchosen ground, raising my fist, holding out stones on my chest, birds in my mouth, send you my love, let them out, cold in my breath, warm in my tub, standing in front, despair enough. Fair enough. show the worthless how that name is wrong. And all the lovers undercover, you can take them off. It gets better, we want to say. Just hold on, hold on. Love is never the wrong way. You're a part of this. You're in the heart of this. You were made by God. And all that loneliness that tries to hold you in, it won't pull you down. 'Cause of all the blessings we hope you're guessing, don't you know that you're